Well, federal Labor backbencher Anthony Byrne, we've talked about him, forced to defend himself today following the investigation into widespread branch stacking inside Victorian Labor. Secret recordings of Adem Somyurek occurred in Byrne's Cranbourne West electorate office. Some say it raises concerns for Australia's national security. Now, I'm not so sure. Byrne's the Deputy Chair of the Parliamentary Intelligence and Security Committee, working alongside someone known to this program very much, Liberal MP Andrew Hastie, who joins me now from Canberra. All right, Andrew, you're in the hot seat here. What have you
Good to be with you.
Oh, great to have you on the show. What have you found in terms of working with Andrew Byrne, Anthony Byrne, as closely as you have? What do you make of his integrity?
That's a good question, Peter. A couple of things. I've seen the program, I've read the news. I don't know much about it at all. People are very tight-lipped, and as you know, it's under investigation. I can talk to the man, Anthony Byrne, who I count as a friend and who's been a very loyal deputy chair of the Intelligence Committee. And when I say loyal, I mean loyal to the national interest in a bipartisan fashion. He loves this country, and he's done a very good job of helping us come to bipartisan positions on a lot of the legislation that passes through the committee. So I value him. I don't know the full story, but certainly the thing that really struck me today was that Anthony Albanese hasn't spoken to Anthony Byrne. I went up to Anthony on the floor of the chamber on Monday when we were both speaking on the US-Australia alliance motion. And it's funny that I've spoken to Anthony, but the opposition leader hasn't. And that's where the questions were today.
I find that extraordinary. I found that extraordinary too. I can't believe that the leader, and we're now 3 days in, has not spoken to the person right at the centre of this issue that's literally blown up the Labor Party. That's certainly blown up the Labor Party in Victoria. It's had administrators called in. Is it perhaps that Anthony Albanese hasn't spoken to Anthony Byrne because he wants to then have complete deniability, or he wants to be able to do a radio interview, let's say, and say, well, look, I don't know anything about that, I haven't spoken to him? Why do you think that he hasn't made the effort to talk to one of the key players in all of this?
Probably to protect himself, but possibly because he just doesn't have a grip on the party. And this is just another demonstration that his authority within the Labor Party is actually quite weak. That would be my view, frankly. And yeah, he should at least do a welfare check. Because
just so people at home understand too, I mean, if anyone in the Parliament is going to know where the line is with legality and illegality on the telecommunications interception power and all the other things, it would be anyone on that committee, the committee that you chair. Anthony Byrne's on that committee. So my gut reaction would be that anything he may or may have done, or his office may have done in relation to this matter and the taping, would have been done with full understanding of what the law might be, particularly the law in Victoria. Do you think there is a case that he has to stand aside from his position as the deputy chair of your committee?
Well, it's not a decision for me to make. It's the gift of the Prime Minister and the opposition leader to serve on that committee. So this is a decision for Anthony Albanese, and the fact that he hasn't even spoken to him yet indicates that I can't foresee a situation where Anthony Byrne would be stepping down anytime soon. So a few preliminary things have to happen, a welfare check and a conversation about where Anthony Byrne is in all of this. But as I've said, I can speak to his character. Over the last few years, he's been a great servant of our country in the committee.
All right, I want to move on to a couple of other things. Were you surprised this week that Labor were blocking legislation in the upper house to better protect children from online predators? They eventually backflipped on that legislation, but they were opposing mandatory sentences, and almost 40% of people charged with Commonwealth child sex offences don't see the inside of a jail. Now, I thought Labor were on board, but then it turned out they weren't, and then they were back again. Why the reason for the change?
Well, I just think they realised that they're out of step with mainstream Australia. This is a pretty black and white issue in my view, and they found themselves in a position which was very unpopular, so they flipped. It was a question of trying to place a bet both ways, and they got found out.
Just last night, Marise Payne spoke on China at the ANU. She doesn't get out much. She got out last night. She spoke pretty loudly. Were you happy enough with what she had to say?
I think this was her best speech as our foreign minister. I think it was It was fair, it was principled, it was tough and realist. There was a lot in there, and I think it articulated our position as a government and the way that we're going to navigate the world stage in the coming years ahead. I think it was a great speech.
Andrew Hastie, as always, thank you for your time.